Hello, everyone. Welcome. We want to thank Jessica and Crystal from Patchogue-Medford Library for hosting us this evening. My name is Anne Marie Brogan, and with me is Marie Limpert.
Hi, everybody.
And we are co-owners of Organize Me of New York and co-authors of the book Beyond Tidy, Declutter Your Mind and Discover the Magic of Organized Living. We just started our 15th year. We specialize in clutter control, paper management, time management, that never-ending to-do list, and space maximization. We teach organizing strategies, and we personalize organizing systems to align with the wishes, goals, and values of our clients. In addition, Marie is a third-degree Black Belt and a karate instructor, and I'm a life coach with a certification in applied positive psychology. Our book, Beyond Tidy, is a fusion of our top 8 organizing principles with the science of positive psychology. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on the one principle that we have found causes people the most stress, and that is principle number 4, deciding what stays and what goes. It's our hope that after tonight's presentation, you will walk away with tangible strategies for making the decision-making process less overwhelming. So feel free to grab a paper and a pen to take notes or have your camera ready to take screenshots. We are recording tonight. So, for those of you at home, if you don't mind being seen, feel free to keep your camera on. We love to see your faces. Otherwise, if you feel camera shy, that's fine too. We really encourage everyone to use the chat feature throughout the presentation. Please let us know what's resonating, and you can ask questions too. But as Jessica mentioned, we will answer all of those at the end during the Q&A session following the presentation.
Okay, again, hi, everybody. So when people talk to us about the organizing process, they often express anxiety about the idea of letting go of their things. Whoops. Interestingly enough, they don't seem to focus on all the things that they decide to keep, that they may decide to keep. Over the years, we've been given a list of reasons and excuses from our clients as to why they're hesitant to let go. And here are a few. But I paid good money for it. I paid almost nothing for it. I got it on sale. There's nothing wrong with it. And you fill in the blank. My special someone gave it to me. So one of the first questions potential clients ask us is, will you be making me throw everything out? So with that, let's take a poll and see what all of you think. So I'm just going to launch the poll, and you're going to see it on your screen. So those of you that are at home, you'll be able to participate. So please feel free to answer. And those of you in the library, it's going to be a collective poll answer.
A show of hands, maybe.
So this is completely anonymous. No one will know what your answers are with any of the polls that we do. So it's a good opportunity to, answer and be honest with yourself and keep going. All right. So I'm going to end the poll, I think, unless the library needs another couple of seconds to answer. So the question is, again, professional organizers want you to throw everything out. Is this true or false? So let me end the poll and share the results. And it looks like the majority of you, all of you, feel that the answer is false. So let me just stop the share and let's continue.
And we love to see that because the actual answer is false. This is a myth that Marie and I are so very happy to dispel for you right now. If you have enough space to house everything, if you can find what you need when you need it, easily and without stress, and if you aren't overwhelmed by the amount of stuff in your home, then you don't have to give up anything. And that's really important. We want you to understand that. You don't need to give up anything. However, if you, for example, you come to us saying your kitchen is super cluttered and cooking is really stressful, and we see that you're a family of 2 with 50 coffee mugs, we're going to have a conversation about that. We're not going to make you throw out anything. What we're going to do is we're going to discuss your goals and your vision for the space. And then we're going to talk things through with you regarding the best way to use it. What's so interesting about when we talk about what stays and what goes is that people automatically default to the what goes, what they have to give up, rather than what they are choosing to keep. And this causes all sorts of stress. Decisions are then made from a guarded and a protected place, much like a child who thinks their toy might be taken away from them if they misbehave. They hold on for dear life, even when the reasoning doesn't make sense for the situation. There's a really deep feeling of vulnerability. We acknowledge that vulnerability with compassion, and we want to support you in moving through it, so it isn't the reason why you're struggling with letting certain things go. And so we want you to think this way. What if we were to focus on the what stays? What you might get to keep? So we invite you to reframe your thoughts and to approach the decision-making process from the standpoint of what you're going to keep, as well as what you may decide to let go of. It's a small shift in thinking that could have a huge impact on progress.
People often look at their cluttered areas feeling like they don't have enough space, when in actuality, it may be that they're not using their space wisely. So to determine if this is the case, we start by looking at what is currently being stored in their prime real estate. And what do we mean by prime real estate? It's the easily accessible areas located within the main spaces of your home. Your prime real estate should be filled with your often used items and should not house items you rarely access or use only seasonally.
And I have the perfect example of this because we just had Thanksgiving. And unlike last year, I did have a lot of people for Thanksgiving. And typically I have very large Thanksgivings. And so I have one roasting pan that is ginormous. It holds a very, very large turkey. And it comes in this big box and it takes up a lot of room. I don't have enough prime real estate in my kitchen to house that the other 364 days of the year. So I keep that in a box to protect it from dust up in my attic, and I pull it down once a year. I host my big Thanksgiving, and then we pack it back up and we put it upstairs, because in my everyday, I don't have the room. I need that room for other things.
So professional organizer Andrew Mellon says, clutter is nothing more than a series of deferred decisions stacked on top of each other. To a certain degree, we do agree with him, and we call this for now clutter. And here is an example of that. I don't know if you can tell by looking at it, but this is someone's dining room table.
For now.
It basically becomes a dumping ground. It basically became, I should say, a dumping ground for the entire family, from school projects to paperwork to just random items that weren't put away in the first place or didn't have homes. So clearly this picture shows how clutter can build up over time because of deferred decisions. However, what we don't agree with is the nothing more part. And really there's way more. We believe that there is an entire category of clutter that is not the result of deferred decisions. Some items are kept intentionally for very specific reasons. And we actually call this category of clutter, clutter by reason. These items may even have a designated spot within your home where they're out of sight and minding their own business. In fact, they may look very neat and tidy. They don't look like clutter, but they are the reason clutter has built up in other areas of your home. So just to repeat that, understand that this clutter by reason is that the clutter itself does not look like clutter, but they're the reason clutter has built up in other areas of your home. So in the next few slides, we'll show you examples of clutter by reason. And as we go through them, think about which ones, if any, might apply to you and your home.
Okay, so the first examples of clutter by reason are, but I paid good money for it, and, but there's nothing wrong with it. These are the things that you're not using, don't like, don't fit into, etc. But you keep them because there's technically nothing wrong with them. They're still in good condition, they still work, you may have paid a lot of money for them. You tell yourself that maybe you'll sell them, but year after year, they are still sitting in your home.
The next two types of clutter are really similar, and we call them clutter cousins. So it's for now clutter and just in case clutter. For now, I'm sorry, for later clutter. Sorry, I did that the last time too. For later clutter. For later clutter consists of things that you hold on to because you convince yourself you will find another use for them at a later time. Listen, we're big fans of repurposing and not being wasteful, but there needs to be a limit to how much you keep if you want to stay in control of your space. Just in case clutter is made up of things you don't use anymore and have no current need for, but you save it because you say you never know when you might need it. In essence, you keep these items just in case. This could be anything from old emails and computer files to physical gadgets, large or small.
The next example we call aspirational clutter. This is the clutter that builds up from activities that you, one, hoped to do but never did, or two, supposedly will do in the future when we have free time. So for example, you always wanted to learn Spanish, so you bought multiple Spanish books and CDs, but then for whatever reason, you didn't continue. Or you always wanted to try knitting, so you bought every size needle and multiple skeins of yarn, but then you realized early on, you don't really enjoy knitting. So even though you're not engaging in either one of these activities, all of the stuff related to them is living in your home.
Okay, the next clutter is called sentimental clutter, which is very dear to our hearts. Of course, we all have certain mementos we want to hold on to that represent our past, right? However, it can become an issue when you want to keep everything. There can be a fine line between sentimental items and sentimental clutter. Sentimental clutter is any item you hold on to for the sole reason that it reminds you of a loved one or a special moment in the past. The thought of letting go of these items brings up feelings of guilt because perhaps someone special gave you a gift that was either bought or handmade. You inherited something from a loved one who passed, or they might be trinkets from special events or trips you've taken. Or perhaps it's your own childhood, keepsakes, or your own children's school papers and artwork that they created. And I could totally relate to this sentimental clutter because in the beginning of COVID last year, I tackled my own keepsake project, which was mostly paper. Even though over the years, I was very good about letting go of things in the moment that my kids might have drawn or made for me, I found myself needing to readdress the excess keepsakes. They were taking up valuable space in my garage and attic, and these were spaces really needed for other things that were important today. You would think as a professional organizer, it would be easy for me, but I'm just like everybody else, and there were some challenges.
And our last example for tonight is super sale clutter. So what thoughts or emotions come up when you look at these signs? Do you get an adrenaline rush just thinking about the savings? We totally get how hard they can be to resist. Super sale clutter is made up of the things that you buy or overbuy because it was a deal you couldn't refuse. But for various reasons, you're not using, wearing, or consuming them. They are still, however, living on your shelves and in your drawers. And so now that we've discussed the reasons why you may be holding on to some of these categories, there are some important points to consider. And the first, none of these categories is clutter, none of them, unless they take away space from more needed and often used items. Unless you have a huge home, there needs to be a limit on how much of these categories you keep if you want to stay in control of your space. And you want to be sure that your prime real estate is only being used for the things you really need, use, and love. Because when your space is crowded with things you're not using regularly, it makes it really hard to find the things that you do need. And so let's do another poll question. Marie, if you could launch it.
Yep.
And so we want you to think about some of the categories we just talked about. And the question is, which clutter by reason categories do you have taking up space in your home? And we'd like you to select all that apply. You can select more than one answer, and I'll read them off again. But I paid good money for it, but there's nothing wrong with it. I'm going to keep this for later. I'm going to keep this, just in case I need it 3 years from now. Aspirational clutter. I'm going to learn Italian. I'm definitely going to learn Italian. I'm going to read all of those books. Or sentimental clutter. And of course, super sale clutter, the deal you couldn't resist.
All right, we'll give you guys a couple more seconds to answer. And it'd be interesting to know what the in-person patrons think.
And also, we
A little bit of everything.
We maintain an environment. We create an environment of non-judgment. There is no judgment here. This is just for you to start thinking about your space a little differently. We want you to think, what is in my easily accessible areas? Is it the stuff that I'm grabbing? Because we don't want you to say, oh my gosh, my house is cluttered, I don't have enough room. But really, it's that the stuff that's out is out because your storage areas are being taken up by these categories. We just want you to start to think about it a little bit more intentionally. And so this is more about gaining self-awareness, because without self-awareness, we can't move forward, right, with change, if change is needed.
All right, so I just shared the results.
You did, okay. All right. And I remembered to put my glasses on today so I could see the percentages, although, okay. So interesting, it always skews differently. For later clutter, if I'm reading this correctly, is it for later clutter?
Yes, 72% of the audience.
72% for later clutter. And that's really interesting. We always want to try to repurpose, and that's great, as long as we, manage our space. 67% of you said sentimental clutter. Never a surprise, because that's the category we get asked about the most. 56% of you said aspirational clutter.
Actually, just in case clutter was tied with sentimental clutter, 67%.
Ah, look at that. Yes.
Yep.
Just in case. Yeah. And then, but there's nothing wrong with it.
This was a real mix.
Yeah, it really is a real mix.
Yep.
33% was, but I paid good money for it. And then 28% super sale clutter.
All right. Okay. So, and the audience in person felt that it was a mix as well.
Ah, okay.
All right. So I'm going to, we ended the share, right? All right.
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about, excuse me, how to make the decision-making process easier when deciding what stays and what goes. Because we know how stressful it can be. So here are some things to consider for easy decision-making. The vision, timing, preparation, sorting and grouping, and reframing your thoughts. And you may want to take some notes or screenshots of these slides at this point. So the first we're going to talk about is vision. We want you to get a very clear vision on what we want your space to look like and how it should function. What is the vision for your space? Ask yourself that. What does this space need to be? Consider how you need it to serve you today rather than too far in the future. Defining that purpose focuses the mind and behavior towards a specific end result. The clearer your vision, the more intentional and on target your decision-making will be. And you'll be approaching each decision with that vision in mind, rather than just making random emotional choices, So ask yourself, does this item align with and support your vision for the space? Is keeping this item worth the space it will be taking up in the area or the room in which you're working on? Is it prime real estate worthy? Or does it belong somewhere else in your home? So how does visioning help make decisions easier? Decisions will be more focused and rational rather than emotional and random and emotional. So the next thing to consider when making decisions is your timing. And what we mean by that is schedule your project for when you'll have the fewest distractions and you have the most energy. You will make the best and most focused decisions when you're not depleted of your energy. Pick the time of day when you have the fewest distractions, maybe after you've eaten and you're well rested. Schedule a start date for the project and add it to your calendar. Respect the appointment as you would any important appointment, like a doctor's appointment, or even a hair or a nail appointment. Sometimes an organizing project will be much longer than most people will anticipate. So we suggest that you estimate the time you think it will take and double it at least. If it is not able to be completed in one sitting, think about the next time you think you can realistically work on that project again, and put that date on the calendar immediately and commit to keeping that appointment with yourself. It's always important to keep the momentum going, especially if it's an ongoing project. So how does timing help make decisions easier? The right timing will help you conserve your energy to make more focused decisions. The next to consider is preparation when you're making decisions. Get mentally ready, set your workspace and your supplies, and get your supplies handy. And what we mean by this is get in the right frame of mind. Eliminate distractions by silencing your phone, turning off any notifications that you might get, advising your family and friends that you won't be available for a certain amount of time. Get mentally ready in the zone. Everyone is different. So maybe for you, do whatever is right. Play some music, meditate beforehand, use essential oils. That always gives a nice feeling in the room, and have water and a snack available at arm's reach. Do anything to prevent that hangry feeling that you might have. The next is set the stage. Choose a particular area within your home where you can spread out and use as a temporary workspace. This is particularly helpful when you're in the sorting stage, and Amory's going to talk about that in a minute. Have your supplies ready and within reach. This makes the organizing project easier to do, and also prevents you from getting up each time you need to do a specific, you need to get something to do a specific task. Every time you get up, it's an opportunity to get distracted and lose your focus. With each interruption, another distraction may be lurking within another area of your home. So here's a list of supplies that we suggest that you have handy. Contractor bags, boxes for donations, regular garbage bags for actual garbage, plastic storage bins, packing tape, paper for labeling, a Sharpie, and a pen. So how does preparing help make decisions easier? It conserves energy, eliminates distractions, and keeps you focused.
The next step is to sort and group. Sort through your belongings and group like items together to create categories. We call this the helping principle. We've found that people don't always remember what they have and how much of it they have. And that's because the same item or category of item is often located in multiple places throughout the home. And it never seems like too much until it's all together. So if you were to decide to organize a space and you were to dump the contents into a big pile and then pick up each item one by one and try to make decisions without any context, it could be very overwhelming and energy draining and anxiety provoking. So to make the process less overwhelming, we suggest sorting through your things and grouping like items together to create these categories before making decisions. Then if these categories exist in other places, we would invite you to gather them and add them to your sorts. And you can just use paper and pen to make temporary labels to keep track of the different categories. I'm going to pull up some pictures and just to give you an idea of why this is important. So this is a basement storage area that Marie and I organized for a client. And I'll just show you the other view. So you'll see that there's stuff on the floor. The shelving units are not being used to their potential. Everything, we can just tell you that nothing is grouped by category. It's all kind of a mishmash. So imagine if we had asked them to just pick up this one random item and say, do you want to keep this? Without context, that would have been difficult. So Marie and I, to make this easier for them, went through every single item on the shelves, on the floor, in the room, and we sorted it into categories. And these are the different categories that emerged when we started sorting. So you can see there was quite a range of things going on in the room. But it was at that point that we were able to then take one pile at a time and make decisions. And we always do that with our clients. And whenever possible, we take them to a different location so that they're not distracted or stressed out by the other piles. We promise you, you will make a different decision when it's all in front of you. And then if purging is necessary, the process is less stressful because you're coming from a place of knowledge. You know just how much of everything you have in all the categories versus the amount of space you have to store it. And just to quickly, since we showed you the before, we'll show you the after. This is the after. You'll see we cleared the floor and everything is in, we use the bins that they already had. We recommended how they could place things differently. And importantly, Marie and I were able to make also better recommendations to our client on how to use the space. But they were able to intentionally decide how their categories would be, where they wanted them to live in the space. And we were able to put it in a way that makes it so easy for them to access what they need when they need it and to put things away. But it all started with the sorting process. And so how does sorting and grouping help make decisions easier? You will make a better decision when you know what you have. It helps to reduce distractions and stress. So while the first steps we mentioned are in a particular order, this last item on our list is one that you should call upon throughout the decision-making process. And that is to reframe your thoughts. We always want you to think of what you are building and creating rather than what you are giving up or losing. Because the first way feels much more empowering and purposeful. The second feels stressful and demotivating. Keeping your mindset positive helps you to zoom out the lens to see the bigger picture. And this ties in with what Marie was talking about earlier in having a clear vision for the space. What are you building and creating? This helps to create a pause before deciding to keep something in your space that doesn't align with your vision. And therefore, your decisions are more intentional. Now, we completely understand that reframing is much easier said than done, especially in the beginning. We know that the default, naturally is, what am I giving up? But it really does help. In fact, this is how I move through the decision-making process to create the closet office that you can hopefully see behind me. Actually, I'll just show pictures of it. So this is my cloffice, my closet office. It's not a very big room. It's actually kind of a small room, but thank you to IKEA, we have some good shelving in there.
Do it yourself?
We did. We built every shelf ourselves. And then this is the view that I'm looking at now. This is what I see when I'm looking. But this room used to be my dad's bedroom. So my dad had lived with us for 4 years before he passed away. And we were really close. And for a long time after he passed, I left the room as is. I mean, it was a guest room for anyone who came over if they stayed with us, but I didn't change the decor or go through his belongings. I just wasn't ready. But after a while, you know, my husband and I started talking about what to do with the space. My house is a decent size, but the closet space was limited. In fact, my husband had been sharing a closet with my daughter, who was now a teenager at that point, and that was not going over well. So we decided to turn this space into a combined closet office for me, and then my husband could then take the closet that I had been using in our bedroom. But now I had to face going through his things. And even though I'm a professional who supports others through this process, it didn't make it any less emotional or less sad. I'm human, and I really missed my dad. And now I was on the other side of the experience. And so I focused on what I was building and creating, which was a much needed closet for me and a dedicated office space, which I had never had, where I could run my end of our organizing business, where I could conduct coaching sessions, and where I could create content. And doing this really helped me focus my decision-making. And importantly, it enabled me to balance my emotions with rational thought. I was also able to step back and recognize that my dad would be so happy at what we were creating, and conversely, would have been so annoyed if I had kept his room like a shrine, which wasn't what he was about. Was it still emotional? Yes. Was it more manageable? Thankfully. And was I able to mix in excitement with the sadness? Absolutely. So how does reframing help make decisions easier? A positive frame of mind is more empowering, and it keeps decisions aligned with your vision and goals.
Okay, so let's do a recap of how to make decision-making easier. So the first is get very clear about what you want your space to look, how you want it to look and function. Schedule your project when you'll have the fewest distractions and most energy. Get mentally ready, set up your workspace, and have your supplies handy. Sort through your belongings and group like items together to create categories. And lastly, think about what you are building and creating rather than what you are giving up or losing. So what happens when you take all the steps we've gone over and the decisions are still really hard to make? Here are some tough love questions to ask yourself when deciding the fate of your stuff. And we encourage you to be honest with your responses. So here's the first tough question. Tough question number 1. Is the only reason you're keeping this item because it came from a loved one, as a gift or through inheritance? And the real talk, the fact that your loved one gave it to you is not enough of a reason on its own for you to keep it. You can appreciate the thought without keeping the gift you truly don't like or have room for. And if you hate it, then keeping it does not honor the person who gave it to you. So here's an example. You inherited hand-crocheted blankets from your grandmother who passed away. You loved her so much, but honestly, you think the blankets are itchy and old-fashioned. They're not your style, they don't match your decor, and you know you'll never use them. But still you feel guilty and can't let them go because somehow you think you'd be disrespecting her or perhaps disappointing your parents or hurt their feelings. However, it doesn't honor your grandmother to let them sit unused in your prime real estate area. There are ways to honor her memory without holding on to physical stuff that otherwise gives you emotional baggage and not joy. So here's some examples of what you can do. Maybe cut a swatch from the blanket or take a picture of it laid out on your couch. Either one can be framed in a collage with a few of your favorite pictures of you and your grandmother together.
And that way you have the memory without the bulk. Okay, tough question number 2. Is the only reason you're keeping this item because it was free? And the real talk, remember, the item has no value unless you are using it or selling it. For example, that free promotional item that came in the mail or that you got at an event, or something somebody buys for you because they think you could use it. One person's trash is not always another person's treasure. Just because someone offers you something for free doesn't mean you are obligated to accept it. It is okay to say, no, thank you. I don't need that. Or I have no room for that. Or it's beautiful, but it just doesn't match my decor. Say how much you appreciate them thinking of you, but then say it like you mean it. No, thank you. Because when you accept things you really don't need or want, invariably, they become clutter. Your clutter, not their clutter, because it's out of their home and now it's in yours. No, thank you. So Marie and I recognize how hard this is for people to say, so we would like you to practice saying it. So Jessica, if you can hear us, maybe you can lead the in-person folks, and at home, if you feel free to join in with us. We're going to practice it, and we're going to
unmute if you want.
We're going to say no thank you together. So when somebody gives you something that you don't have room for or don't like or don't want, you're going to appreciate them, but then you're going to say the following: no thank you. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
No,
thank you. Excellent. Practice makes perfect. Keep going. So one final note before we move on to the next tough question. If you have someone who is constantly bringing things over for you to keep, whether it's a family member that brings over family heirlooms or just stuff, it could be their difficulty and resistance in letting go of things. They no longer want it in their home, and so they give it to you, which makes them feel less guilty. That's not always the case, of course, but if it is, it's important not to let their issues become yours. Recognize it for what it is with compassion, and then hold your ground. It's important for you to set your own boundaries. And so with that, we will go to tough question number 3. Is the only reason you're keeping this item because you got it on super sale? As we talked about earlier, a super sale can be very hard to resist, but consider this. You bought a shirt on super sale, but you never wore it because when you brought it home, you didn't really love it as much as you thought, but you didn't return it either because it was so inexpensive. You figured you'd wear it eventually, but then you never did. Guess how much money you saved?
0.
0. Here's another thought. Sometimes people overbuy when things are on super sale because they truly believe they are saving money for their family. Consider this. You catch a super sale at the market and you buy 20 of an item, like pasta, when you really only need 2. You rationalize it by thinking of the savings. But after a few years, you still haven't consumed them because you went all keto and you no longer eat carbs. And for a variety of reasons, they expire and you have to throw them out. Guess how much money you saved? 0.
0.
So here's the real talk. It's only a deal if you use what you've bought. Otherwise, you've spent money, not saved it. Plus, it's costing you space to store it, space that could be allocated for the items that you are using.
All right. Last tough question, number 4. Is the only reason you're keeping this item because it reminds you of a time when you felt better about yourself? It's not just about the things themselves, but what they represent that makes it so challenging and sometimes even painful to let go. Maybe it's a time in your life when you were happier and more successful, or you feel like you looked better and you felt more confident. Letting go may seem like you'll never feel that way again. But the real talk is accept yourself fully in the moment today. Try not to place conditions on your happiness. Let go of things that don't inspire you or lift your confidence right now. Be aware of the if only thoughts, like if only I had more money, or if only I could be that size again, then I'd be happy. How often do we all do that, right? Instead of appreciating and celebrating what's going on well, what's going well right now. And our stuff sometimes feeds into this.
I'll give you an example. Say back in the day you were a size 6 and now you're a size 12. You've still kept your 6s as goal clothes, and they're taking up space in your prime real estate. So you start going to the gym, eating right, and you engage in all this self-care. You start to lose weight and you look and you feel great. You should feel fierce and empowered, but you don't because you're not yet a size 6. If those size 6 clothes make you feel like somehow you're failing instead of absolutely rocking your fitness goals, then they're not serving you. They're not motivating you. In fact, they're causing you to miss the win. In that instant, we would invite you then to let them go and to use your prime real estate for what you need at this moment in time. And then if you ever do get back to a size 6, think of all the fun you'll have shopping.
So once you've decided to let things go, you want to be sure you don't undo the hard work that you just did, right? So what's next? Here are some steps. Take action. Toss, donate, or sell anything you've committed to letting go. Get it out of your house. We call this finishing the task, which happens to be another one of our top organizing principles. It means seeing a task through to the very end before you start a new one. In this case, while making the decision is important, the real triumph is physically getting what you don't want out of your house. So bag it, box it, get rid of it. Toss your garbage immediately into the garbage bags as you purge and let go. Get it ready for garbage pickup day by placing the bags outside. You don't want anyone to be tempted, including yourself, to fish out something you decided to throw out. And be honest, have any of you done that? Tell us in the chat. Give special items to family or friends. Sometimes we have items we'd like to give away to a certain person in mind. So call or text that special someone immediately and ask if they would like the item, but respect if they don't want it. If they want what you're letting go, then set a deadline for them to come and pick it up. Try not to make it your job to drop it off. And if they don't come to pick it up, then just resign yourself to the fact that you'll just donate it. Sell. If you set aside a pile of things to sell, be real about whether or not you'll commit to selling. And if the answer is yes, if you decide yes, figure out through what means. There are a lot of consignment shops, online sites, and selling apps that you can use, or you can do a yard or tag sale on your own. But no matter what you decide, set a date on the calendar. If the items don't sell, then donate them, which leads to donating. Place any items to donate directly into contractor bags or boxes if they're breakable. If your favorite organization picks up donations, we suggest that you schedule the date before you start your project. This is key for 2 reasons. It gives you a goal date to finish the task of letting go, and it eliminates the step of you physically driving the items to a drop-off location to donate. If you must drop it off, then schedule the date with yourself and just do it. Many people hold on to things they no longer need, mentally, physically, or emotionally. In some cases, these things are actually holding them back or preventing them from moving forward. So I'm going to launch, wrong thing. I'm going to launch our last poll question. Just give me a second. Okay, here we go. So here is the final poll question. What do you think? Are your things and your thoughts moving you forward or holding you back? And this really is a very reflective question that you can ask yourself throughout the whole process. But it really does, make it real for a lot of people, So again, this is anonymous and we won't see who you are, but, for your own sake, be honest with yourself. Are your things and your thoughts moving you forward or holding you back?
And this is a question that we would really invite you to take with you after you leave us tonight and to think about it. If you're somebody who likes to journal, this is a good one to reflect on, because very often we don't recognize how our space and the things that we put in it are impacting the way we show up in the world and the way that we're living our lives. And so we're hoping that we've gotten you to think about things a little bit differently, a little bit non-traditionally.
So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Okay, so it looks like, a good majority of you feel, 65% feel that your things and your thoughts are holding you back. And, for those of you that it is holding you back, it's just now, you kind of have a starting point here, and, you can decide what you want to do with this now and try to tackle something that you feel is holding you back. And for those of you that, your things and your thoughts are moving you forward, then that's great. Keep at it, keep doing what you're doing. But hopefully, something from tonight resonated with you and you'll continue. And it looks like the library in-person group felt that it was definitely, holding them back.
Okay.
As the consensus.
Well, we're going to leave you with just some final thoughts this evening before we go to our Q&A. And we want you to think about living a more fulfilled life. And you can do that by surrounding yourself with things that make you feel good and serve a clear purpose. There is power in giving yourself permission to let go of the things that no longer serve you. There's power in knowing exactly what you have and where to find it when you need it. There's power in being on time because you haven't lost any time looking for things. There's power in recognizing the things in life you can control, like your space and what you put in it, and understanding how that impacts your life. And there's power in creating a life that you love, one that's been deliberately designed by you, rather than a life that's simply a byproduct of the chaos and clutter around you.
To live a more fulfilled life and to show up in the world the way you want to, again, ask yourself, are your things and your thoughts moving you forward or holding you back? Give yourself permission to let go of the things that no longer serve you. And really, it's incredibly liberating. We've seen it time and time again, to let go of physical, mental, and emotional clutter and keep only what is in line with your vision for that space. Doing both can lead to increased hopefulness, happiness, and overall well-being. So thank you again for all of you for attending. We hope you found some great takeaways from tonight. And please let us know in the chat what your takeaways were. It helps us to know, what they are so we can continually improve the presentation for the future. Just a couple of slides that we want to bring up. Although I believe Beyond Tidy is available in the library, if you'd like to purchase it, this is where you can find it. It focuses on our top 8 organizing principles. And tonight we touched upon principle number 4, which is in chapter 7, deciding what stays and what goes. With each principle, we explain not only what to do, but why we're asking you to do it and how it will impact you. And it's available hardcover version, digital, audio book, however you'd like. If you subscribe to our mailing list to receive our monthly newsletter, calendar of events, and special promotions, as a thank you, you'll be able to preview chapter 2 of Beyond Tidy, which answers the question, where do I begin? And this is really like a good starting point for a lot of people, because a lot of times they have so much clutter in every room that they really just don't know where to start. So this kind of helps them to gain some perspective and, a starting point. So we love hearing from people. Please keep in touch. We're on Instagram and Facebook. We always read, messages, emails. So this is how you can reach us. So please take a picture of our contact slide. We are Organize Me of New York. Our website is www.organizemeny. Please put in the ny.com. And we do offer in-home and virtual organizing sessions if anybody's interested. And thank you again to Crystal and for Jessica. Yes, Jessica, sorry, to have us tonight from the Patchogue-Medford Library. And please stick around for the Q&A if you would like to talk about anything that has to do with organizing. All right, I'm just going to look in the chat and just see if there are any questions or comments. Andy, thank you. Hi, ladies. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and positive energy. Any tips for dealing with a spouse that is not as organized as I am? We share a workspace and his disorganized papers drive me crazy. It is stressful to me, but it doesn't bother him at all. Any suggestions on how to handle this type of workspace? We get that a lot, where one person, one spouse, one partner is more organized than the other. And, what we do say is have a conversation clearly about what is going on within that space and express how, it makes you feel and whatnot. And if you feel like you can't come to a common ground, then just keep doing what you're doing, because the more he or she sees that you're organized in your own things, the more obvious it will be that their things are what's causing the clutter in your home. So, and we have seen that with a lot of couples and families, and usually even a family conversation with everyone is also helpful, because if everyone has like a buy-in to what the space, could be used for and what the different zones might be for that space, then it ends up being, more of an agreeable thing to do. So hopefully that helps you. Amory?
I just want to piggyback on that. Earlier, Marie gave some tips for kind of setting the stage and setting yourself up for success when you're making decisions. And some of that was making sure that you're well rested, making sure that you're mentally in the zone, that you're calm, that you're not hangry, you're not hungry. And sometimes when people do broach the subject, because you may be listening to Marie saying, I have talked to him, he doesn't listen to me. That's it. But sometimes when we are triggered by the anxiety that, that the other person's mess is causing, sometimes that's the time that we choose to bring it up, and we're not in the right frame of mind, and it can come across in a different way. And so we are inviting you to make it a dialogue and make it a conversation, because if it's less accusatory, even if like the reality is they're a mess and they need to clean it up, it's going to be a more productive conversation if you can kind of get them in a place where they're still calm when they're receiving what you're giving them. And then you can say, this is really in fact impacting me. What can we do together? How can we meet in the middle and find some common ground? Because the reality is we do both need to work here. So I know that that's easier said than done, but definitely kind of getting your own emotions and emotionally regulating yourself before you have the conversation will probably increase your chances of it being a more productive conversation. And it may not happen, the change may not happen overnight, but the seed may be planted in a way that's, again, more fertile, in more fertile soil, to go with that analogy.
All right. Thank you for some of the comments. Eileen actually had a suggestion for us to put more, maybe include more pictures in the future. Just a suggestion. She finds before and after pictures to be very motivational. Thank you. We actually have a lot of before and after pictures in our other presentation. Mm-hmm. So it definitely is something that we will keep in mind for this one. We'll see where we can kind of tweak and add a few more. So thank you.
And we have case studies and before and after albums on our website and on Facebook and social media if you want to take a look at them to see.
Definitely.
Sometimes a
And-
picture is not worth 1,000 words, and very often, you know, we also, for some people, sometimes the after picture actually is like, I'll never get to that point because they feel so overwhelmed. And the truth is an awful lot happened between picture A and picture B. And we could technically just kind of push the clutter out of the way and take a nice after picture. But that's why we like to show it kind of as a case study, so you could understand the very real effort that went into the decision-making that led to the after picture. But yes, we understand too that visually it is very motivating sometimes. So we will absolutely think where we can add some more of that. Thank you.
Just as a heads up for anyone who, you know, does have a lot of sentimental clutter, there's three 30-minute videos that Amory and I shot when I was going through my experience of, you know, going through my own paper clutter. And you know, and everything was very, you know, neat and organized. Like I said, over the years, I tried to keep only what I wanted in the moment. When the years were going by, though, it just seemed to be more and more. So if you did want to, you know, if you have time and you can sit and listen, and there are a lot of pictures in there as well, it tells you like the journey that I went through. And Amory's basically like asking me questions. It was almost like an interview where she asked me questions about what I did to tackle my keepsake project. And if you'd like also, if you don't have the time right now to watch the videos, there is a recap of that in a blog, that in a newsletter. I'm sorry, newsletter or blog?
Oh,
No,
it's
in a blog.
You wrote the blog
It was a
post
blog.
on Monday. I actually would recommend reading the blog because Marie actually you shared some more reflections. It was really beautiful, actually, the way she shared the reflections, and some things came out in the blog that didn't necessarily come out in the videos. And then the videos are linked in the blog. So I would actually recommend going to the blog and reading the blog first, and then linking to the videos.
The blog is on our website. We have a web page on that. So again, I'll put our website in the chat, and
if you put /blog, that'll take them right to the blog.
all right, so Organize Me NY /blog.
Well, .com.
Oh, .com blog.
No, I'll do it. Hold on. And then I have.
I did it.
Did you? Let me see.
Organize Me NY.com /blog.
So somebody sent a message. I'm not sure if it was meant to be a direct message or it just came through that way. Somebody said, both of you have given me much to think about. My difficulty is paper. I hold on to too much and worry about discarding because of identity theft. Must I shred everything? We actually do an entire presentation on paper management because it is such a hot topic, and it is a topic of concern for many people, particularly now that we have such an online footprint and identity theft is such a hot button issue. Do you have to shred everything? Anything that you're discarding that has anything that could be used by a person to assume your identity? Yes, any kind of identifying information, obviously anything with an account number, a social security number, even like we don't want to make it easy for anybody, even going through the garbage if they were to go through your physical garbage. So even when you're shredding, if you have an old shredder that's like a ribbon shredder and it shreds it into just ribbons, that's not enough. You want to get a micro cut shredder. And that's even different than a crisscross. It literally puts things into confetti. You want to make it impossible to reconstruct these documents. And even if you get a solicitation for a credit card, how often do those come in the mail? Like every day we get solicitations for credit cards. The recommendation from financial experts and security experts is to shred those, even if you don't take advantage of them. So Marie and I are not financial advisors. And so even in our paper management presentation, we make a disclaimer that the presentation is what we are experts in is the organization and management of paper, but we provide links in the chat to help people. They're to reputable organizations like Morgan Stanley,
Mhm.
Susie Orman, there's 4 different ones, and they have updated pages on their websites devoted to general recommendations for what you need to keep and for how long. Everybody's situation is different. Some people are running businesses at home, some people just have their personal. There are various factors, and so we would always recommend that you speak either to your financial advisor, your attorney, or your accountant, and get some guidance as to what the rules should be for you. So it's hard to answer a question like that in a short period of time, but to answer your question, you would be better off, if you're worried about identity theft, shredding anything that does have any kind of identifying information.
So the in-person audience didn't have any questions, but they're excited to read the book. Thank you. All right, we have a question from Bridget. Tchotchkes, I think that's what you're spelling there. Yeah, right? Tchotchkes, yes. What do we do with them, and how to organize small spaces and vitamins and supplements? I like her comment. Oi. That's a loaded question because it's three different things there. Tchotchkes, it all depends. Are you talking about like, kids tchotchkes? Are you talking about like just random things that you just don't know where to put them? Sometimes things come in that we don't ask for. They're free items like Amory was talking about earlier in the presentation. And you just have to, either decide if you really want them and make an association of where, if you are going to keep it, what you associate it to be with. Like, for instance, what specific area in your house would you think of that particular tchotchke to use? I could tell you, like, when my kids were little, they would come home with all these different like toys from, Chuck E. Cheese or the bowling alley if we went to, or just something. And they would collect all these little tchotchke toys, and they each had one drawer in my coffee table. I specifically bought this coffee table just to have some storage for board games on the sides. And it had 2 drawers, and I have 2 children, and they each had that one drawer. And if there was a tchotchke that they wanted and they wanted to keep for whatever reason, it could be like a little tiny ball to one of those little springy, like what was that called? The bouncy, it would go from one step to another. The shrinky dinks, like, no, not shrinky dinks. I can't think of what it is, but whatever really tchotchke they came home with.
Slinky.
What was it?
A slinky.
Slinky, thank you. That was it. I couldn't think of that. But they had all like mini versions of that. And, at the moment they would want to keep it. And then they just didn't know where to put it. It would end up on any kind of surface. And I finally just trained them to be like, if you're looking for this to not be in the garbage and you want to keep it, put it in your own drawer. And if you're looking for that particular thing, then the only place it could possibly be is in your own drawer. Basically, they had their own little junk drawer, and then we would occasionally go through it, and you'd be surprised as time went on, how it wasn't important to them anymore, and then they would throw it out. But small spaces, how to organize small spaces. Again, it comes back to what we were saying in the presentation. Have a vision for what you want that space to be, and if you do have small spaces where you're looking to house, if it's in a closet or if it's in a small shelving unit that you might have, or, a small little, I'm just trying to think, like a small little section of a room that you might have a unit, then just decide what you want that space to be. And, there's a lot of products that you can get. We try to use what we call, we call it a drawer on a shelf, but basically it's any kind of rectangular unit. The ones that we do like are from the company iDesign. Interdesign is another name for them. And, you've probably seen them in like Target or, Bed Bath & Beyond, or even on Amazon. But you want to just try to, especially if they're deep spaces, you want to try to corral what it is that you're looking to categorize, and just have categories in each bin, so at least what it is, and label that bin. So that's a good way to kind of keep in check with small spaces, because especially if there's small items like a bathroom, you might have small items, or maybe a makeup area or something like that, or even, in your own bedroom closet, jewelry, things like that. So, but Amory, I'm going to let you talk about vitamins and supplements.
Well, even just to go back to the small spaces, to be honest, you organize a small space the way you would organize a big space. The process is still the same. It just means that when you have a smaller space, you have less to work with, which means probably that your prime real estate is less than you would have in a larger space, which means you have to be more discerning about what you put in it. So having that vision that Marie's talking about becomes extra important with a small space. Sometimes when we have a big space, we're not necessarily more organized because we have a big space. For the person who does not have a grasp on how to manage a space, having a big space just means a bigger dumping ground. And it also means more deferred decisions. Because if I have an extra bedroom that nobody needs to see, how often does that become this dumping ground, right? Because you don't have to make the decision in that moment, because it could just go in the room. But what happens is if you have a small space and you don't have that luxury, you have to make a decision and you have to figure what is worthy of my space. And so that's where a presentation like this and what we're trying to teach you is to make that process less overwhelming. So you can say whatever's in this space really deserves to be here and is worthy of my vision. Obviously, we want you to take advantage of your vertical space where possible. Sometimes people forget to look up and they're just kind of thinking what's on the surface. And so there are a lot of different units that you can hang on your wall, or you can use hooks. There's so many products now that make it so much easier than, when we were growing up, we didn't have all these products, but you could even buy, people that don't have a place to put their hats can take hooks. People that don't have a place to put their costume jewelry can put hooks on the wall and hang it. We've done a lot of dorm rooms, so we see how people get creative with dorm room spaces.
Yeah, to maximize the space. There's another principle that we talk about that's called managing your inventory so you can manage your space. And sometimes what happens is with small spaces, you might have duplicates of things in there. You want to try to, especially with small spaces, try to limit how much of each type of thing you might have in there, and if you need to set up an area somewhere else that maybe you would go shopping from home, if you ever needed to replace what's in those small spaces, then that would be a good way. Like if you have, even if you only had room for a bin of extra things that might be, for example, bathroom supplies, at least in your small space, you can keep one or two of everything that you absolutely need to use. And if you need to replenish, then you would go into your bin, or maybe if there's a shelf, if you have, the luxury of having, a basement or a small storage area that you can use, or you might have to just really be very mindful about when you go shopping, only shop what your space can hold. For a lot of people that is a very important thing, important issue. And we ask a question, are you managing your space to manage your inventory? Like, are you actually the question is more, are you buying first?
Yeah.
Are you buying first and then worrying about space later, or the other way around? And a lot of people, they don't buy with an intention. They don't buy with a list, and they just randomly go to the supermarket or go to Target or whatever, and they just buy rather than looking at what is it that I actually do need to replenish in my small space. So something to consider. I mean, that could be for any space, but managing inventory so you can manage your space is a very, very important principle that we talk about. A lot of thank yous here, and we so appreciate that. We're really happy that you got something out of this. I know we're getting a little bit over and some of you had to jump off. So
does anybody else have any questions? We're happy to answer anything.
Anyone from in-person?
Questions, but we wanted to say thank you, and we did get some requests for the paper management class, so we will be in touch with you guys.
Yay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your wonderful comments, and we love the questions always. We love talking about organizing, and happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Thank you. Have a good night.